Good evening, wanderers of the shadows. I am your humble guide through tales that chill, thrill, and linger long after the night has fallen. So, draw the curtains tight, light a solitary candle, and prepare to delve into the darker corners of imagination. Where to begin? Picture this: a sprawling woodland, ancient and untamed, stretching as far as the eye can see. The trees are gnarled sentinels of time, their branches clawing at the heavens like skeletal fingers. It is here that our tale unfolds, a cautionary one, I assure you, of duty, defiance, and dreadful consequence. The protagonist of our little tragedy was a man by the name of Arthur Pembroke, a stout fellow who carried himself with the quiet dignity of someone who had seen too much life to be easily rattled.
Pembroke, come to my office. I need to speak with you.
Yes, Mr. Hargrave.
Pembroke, this is your first week here, and I want to ensure that you completely understand what is expected of you. You will park your truck and walk these grounds and ensure that nothing happens to this property. As a security guard, I need you to take this job very seriously. That's why it is imperative that you always follow these 3 rules. Rule number 1, you must never speak to anyone you see in these woods. Number 2, you must never go to sleep in these woods. And finally, the most important of the 3, you must never go into these woods after dark.
Understood. That won't be a problem.
These rules exist for your protection, Pembroke. Do not mistake them for mere suggestions. Remember to simply follow the rules.
What a strange thing to ask of me.
And thus began Arthur's tenure as guardian of the woods. For weeks, all went smoothly. By day, he wandered among the towering oaks and whispering pines, his boots crunching over fallen leaves, his torchlight cutting through the dappled shadows. He encountered nothing out of the ordinary, save for the occasional deer darting between the trees or the distant call of a bird. But even then, there was something off about the place. An oppressive stillness lingered in the air, as though the forest itself were holding its breath, waiting. It was during his 4th week that things took a turn. One afternoon, while patrolling near the heart of the woods, Arthur spotted a figure standing amidst the trees. At first glance, it appeared to be a woman, her silhouette framed by the golden light filtering through the canopy above. She wore a flowing gown that shimmered faintly, though whether from fabric or some trick of the light, Arthur could not say. Her face was obscured, hidden beneath a veil of shadow. Curiosity stirred within him. Who was she? What business did she have in these woods? Against every instinct screaming at him to heed Rule 1, Arthur approached cautiously.
Excuse me, miss. Are you lost?
You shouldn't be here. Leave now, while you still can.
Arthur opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. Before he could muster a reply, the woman vanished, melting into the trees like mist dissolving in sunlight. Shaken, Arthur returned to his post, brushing off the encounter as a trick of the mind. Surely fatigue had gotten the better of him, but the incident lingered in his thoughts, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. That evening, as twilight descended upon the woods, Arthur made another fateful decision. Exhausted from hours of walking, he settled beneath a tree to rest, leaning against its trunk. Just a moment's respite, he told himself, ignoring the nagging voice reminding him of Rule 2. Moments later, his eyelids grew heavy, and despite his best efforts, sleep claimed him. When Arthur awoke, the woods were cloaked in darkness. Panic seized him as he realized he had broken Rule 3. He was now deep within the forest after nightfall. The moon hung low in the sky, casting pale silver beams through the trees, but they offered little comfort. Shadows writhed and danced around him, taking on shapes that seemed almost human. A sound reached his ears then, a soft, rhythmic tapping, like footsteps crunching over dry leaves. Arthur froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Slowly, he turned toward the source of the noise and saw her again, the woman from earlier. This time, however, she was closer, her form more defined. Her gown glimmered faintly in the moonlight, and her face, oh, her face. It was beautiful, yes, but horribly so.
You broke the rules, and now you must pay the price.
Arthur tried to flee, but his legs refused to obey. Roots erupted from the ground, coiling around his ankles and binding him in place. The woman stepped closer, her movements fluid and hypnotic. As she extended a hand toward him, the world seemed to warp and twist, reality unraveling at the seams. Arthur screamed, but no sound escaped his lips. By morning, search parties discovered his body slumped against the same tree where he had fallen asleep. His expression was frozen in a mask of terror, his skin deathly pale. There were no visible wounds, no signs of struggle, only the faint impression of claw-like marks etched into the bark behind him. The locals whispered of curses and spirits, of warnings ignored and consequences paid. Mr. Hargrave, when questioned, merely shook his head and muttered, "I warned him." And so, dear listener, let this serve as a reminder. Some rules are not meant to be broken. Some places are not meant to be trifled with. And some woods... Well, some woods are best left undisturbed.